don't be so hard-headed. You gotta be willing to take a lesson and learn. And I think being willing to have open ears and ask a lot of questions is the best way to gain professional growth. At least for me, it's always been the best way to learn is to get my hands on and see it for myself.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert, and I cannot wait to introduce you to today's guest. Today's show is slightly different in the sense that our guest today is in service of facility professionals. So without further ado, he's worked in the iron and steelworks industry for over a decade. He plays a pivotal role in driving projects to successful completion. With a keen eye for detail and a strategic mindset, he excels in coordinating multifaceted tasks and ensuring seamless communication across teams. In accordance to his company's mission statement, he ensures that all project milestones are met with the highest standards of quality by maintaining a strong focus on deadlines, deliverables, and communication within his team. He is the project manager at Lawton Welding. Bill Cherry, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me on today. I'm excited.
Of course. Absolutely, man. Thanks for investing your time with us.
Of course. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. So, like I said in the opener here, but actually you and I are both in service to our audience for the most part, right? We're vendors who provide services for facility professionals. And today we wanted to dive a little deeper into what does that success look like? How does it save a facility professional time? And more than that, right? So
Yeah.
Over the years, Bill, with your experience, you've been an owner, you're a project manager, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot with facilities. What's been your biggest lesson learned specifically toward how to keep a project easy for the facility professional and how to keep it seamless?
We always like to just dive right into exactly what they need, what the issues are, or what's being the processes that are being changed and how we can make that easier, how we can streamline it without them having any downtime, how we can get the processes done as efficiently as possible, or even just make, sometimes a facility has been already operating for some time and the processes within have changed, or there's just issues that have been identified as safety hazards that need to be addressed. And we like to come in based on, what we've provided in the past history to previous clients, what we know we can do, and get solutions that we can offer.
You just mentioned something I love, and that's solutions. If a facility asks us as a vendor to do something, we could simply respond. However, what value or what solutions are we bringing? And so I definitely align with you on that. Could you say a little bit more about how you do that? What some best practices are?
I think that's kind of, without getting too specific on exactly what we do, I think like looking at specific engineering practices and just different techniques of how we can put this infrastructure into place without having any or minimal impact to someone's day-to-day operations. That's how we look to complete really any project.
Makes sense. You also mentioned downtime, and I think these are kind of side by side with each other, but any specific things other than what you just mentioned, to avoid downtime or to minimize downtime? Because that's the facility's money time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think other than willing to work off hours or around different shifts or timelines, I think we kind of really go back to the design and how we can engineer or fabricate something to make it so it'll be seamless, and there's really no impact to the active work environment in place.
Agreed. One of our colleagues, right? Both of us have known him for a while. He speaks very highly of you in the sense of consensus. And so let's say we're walking into a shutdown, right? And there are so many parties involved. So we have the facility, we have the facilities team, right? And their whole network of people that we're working with. Then we have other trades and, maybe an engineer and other people are involved. So you are very strong at getting consensus and getting success through that. How do you do that?
The best way is getting in as early as possible. It was as much lead time, giving somebody as much notice and as much of a clear understanding as possible of what's going on. Um, sometimes when we got to bring a crane into a facility or onto someone's property, uh, the documents that we put together are 60, 70 pages long of exactly where this crane is going to be placed, what it's going to be doing, where it'll be swinging and reaching, and like where impact zones are, and we'll coordinate it totally to a T to, make it safe, make it so that, they can still do what they need to do or get, deliveries in or keep certain parts of the building functioning throughout this, our operations when they finally come to be.
What has gotten in the way of that? Because that is a lot of coordination, or I guess more specifically, how does the facility team work with you, and how do you make it easy for them to navigate this with you?
I think it's usually always we work well together because somebody knows that they need to, give us room or space or shut down an area for expansion or, and it's usually only temporary to get in and do what we need to do or for another subcontractor to complete their work in order to get on to the next stage. So like I said, letting them know like what shutdowns are going to be necessary and as far out as and in advance as possible. That's the key to any successful installation.
Perfect. You're going to lead me right into the communication question. I mean, you and I have talked about this, Bill, and this. I like what you said about getting in early and really early information. How do you coordinate communication with all these different people? Your internal team, the facilities team. What methods do you use? What platforms? How does that all work? What would your advice be on that?
So my advice is to get everybody there, looking at each other face to face, look at the issues or what we're going to be doing so everyone has a clear understanding of what's going to be happening. I think, when you can get people together in the same room, there's a difference between drafting an email and trying to bullet point some questions versus sitting down with somebody and having a conversation with them and really getting a clear understanding of what procedures are going to be taking place.
100%. Yeah, call it body language, eye contact, and actually, it's not finite, right? It's like an email chain can easily cut off. You've got that opportunity to bring the conversation to other places with a larger audience too. That's my view. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's better to get in front of somebody and understand what they need. And a lot of times, there's questions that come up after the fact, or, I think it's just quicker and easier and better if everybody gets together after, a plan is in motion. And then once it's all, everybody understands what's going on and the path forward is clear, then we can execute it confidently.
Fantastic. Agreed. Um, we touched on customer advocacy, and this is a very important one to me in our organization. I know it is to you and yours, Bill, because if we show up as an advocate rather than just a service that's being provided, you're truly working towards the customer's best interest at that point. We're not just checking a box or doing a task. How do you provide customer advocacy at Lawton, and what advice would you give us?
I think a lot of it has to do it's done on the back end when the design, the dirty details, understanding what a lot of times just code requirements, safety measures that or we would know based on experience and history that we need to be in place. If it hasn't been identified yet, we'll add that into a design or notify them that, they're missing something, a key item that would need to be in place in order to make this safe and effective.
How so we all know construction isn't a straight line, right? There's something's going to happen. We're going to have to pivot. I'd love it if you could give us some examples, Bill, about like what happened. How did you help the facility when something occurred, or any examples you could share around that, so the audience can pick up some advice from you.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're a structural steel manufacturer. We do a lot of miscellaneous metals, stairs, railings, balconies, safety items, fall protection items, guardrails and dunnage rack systems, and anything that involves steel, which is in most buildings, commercial or industrial buildings that, you know, we're that we will work on, provide, modify, upgrade. So, usually working in a building space as a steel contractor usually has no no mechanical impacts, as we're not an electrician or an HVAC tech. You know, it's usually whatever we do is more major, especially if it's on the building itself. So, you know, we try to see like what avenues we can take to approach how to erect and get material into a building. We've had to upgrade an existing roof to receive new equipment that was being loaded on to a facility, and we had to put in we had to put in all new steel in the roof to support it, and none of the steel could go in through the building because the building was still active and had equipment inside and people working, and these beams were 45 feet long, 7,000 pounds. So it was actually
Wow.
more, yeah,
But
they were,
Bill, I want to stop you for a second there. Who coordinated that? Who
well,
actually coordinated how to orchestrate that through that building and around it?
it was done by us. The job was developed by a design team, an architect and a structural engineer. They knew what equipment was going on the roof, the loads, what needed to be done to the structure in order to upgrade it and make it structurally sound. It comes down, it's us that have to do the logistics and figure out the best way to install it, not only for us, but for the facility and the people inside of it as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that there was about 74 beams that were 7,000 pounds, 45 feet long, that were placed in a single shot through the top of the roof. We every week for like 4 months, whenever we had a sunny day, we were making temporary openings in the roof, and we had a crane come in and we were placing these large beams through the top into the roof instead of bringing them in through the building and erecting them up into the underside of the roof. So there was zero impact to, you know, most of the facility operations at the time. The only part that had to be blocked off was the zone where the swing radius and where the beam was actually going, but everywhere else beyond could still be in operation and working at the time.
That sounds like excellent coordination. I'm sure the facilities, the whole operation was grateful for that.
Yeah, it's a weekly effort, daily effort, really, sometimes hour by hour, weather,
Mhm.
different operations that are going on within the facility. As long as they let us know ahead of time, we can plan accordingly. And as long as that communication stays in place, then everything usually goes pretty smooth.
So I do want to jump back to the not so smooth question too, because things don't always go quite right sometimes.
Yeah.
And again, you're very good at getting consensus on a team. You're very good with communication. What has happened when it didn't go well, and how did you course correct? How'd you get it back on track for the facilities team, for the for their organization, really, not so much for with your team, but how did you, like you just said, maintain that operational capacity that they need while something may not have gone quite right?
I can't really think of a time when something really hasn't gone quite right, but there have been times where major changes have been made in the middle of whatever we were working on or doing at the time, and that course corrections really thrown everybody for a loop. And then, you really have to take a step back and redevelop a plan and see what the changes made and how to best execute it now that because that's what happens, especially like in pharma and just these pharma facilities, these campuses, like if a new drug comes out, sometimes it's like within 24 hours, it seems like they're already working on a new building to start manufacturing this product. And, you gotta be there and willing to jump on it right away to, to get it done for them.
Got it. Very good stuff. Good learning right here.
And then 6 months later, something else comes out and, you're rehabbing the space that you just built, within a year's time for a new need, and that's just how the developing world goes.
Sure, sure. You navigate it with ease, and I know it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of coordination on your front. What advice would you give other vendors, whether it's steel, electrical, HVAC, anyone who's working with the facility professional, the facility manager or planner? What advice would you give them to make things go well?
To always be a forward thinker. Really
Mhm.
gotta plan ahead. And, other than communication, I think, really getting intimate with your projects at hand and your clients and understanding what they need. It always sucks when you know, overlook something and you're about to make a move and execute on, installation of an item, but you forgot to get a hot work permit or something, and the permit's going to
Mhm.
take 2 weeks. So now you got steel sitting in your yard that you can't install because you have a small oversight. So, it's really just being intimate and understanding what the job's needs are, what the client's needs are, and getting it all aligned ahead of time, as far in advance out as possible. Whether that means, like just figuring out who other players are. Sometimes we're not all introduced or working directly with one another, but something that we have coming up may impact what they're working on as well. So, we like to get ahead of that and make sure we reach out and communicate and work together. So when the time comes, things stay efficient.
Well said. Well said. Excellent. There's one theme that comes up in our world all the time, right? You mentioned it briefly earlier, and that's safety, and it certainly comes up here on the show. Um, what steps do you take, especially with your trade is I mean the weight, the danger alone. How do you stay compliant and prepare for a very successful safety project?
Well, I rely on the other members on our team. We have safety managers that, that's what their sole purpose day to day is to look at what our operations are, to make sure that the employees are provided with the equipment they need in order to do their job safely. We give them the correct equipment. If there's a way to give somebody safer access to an area of work instead of making them physically get there or climb up on top of it, we will absolutely invest in whatever the equipment is to make sure that, we're getting it done as safely as possible. Um, and that's just, any job anywhere. That's just how it is. It's a standard, we gotta maintain high safety, uh, our high safety, um, culture.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a no exceptions thing, right? Because you can't getting someone getting injured just isn't something anyone would ever want. We have found it in our organization that working with the internal facilities EH&S team, not the facilities, but the EH&S team, is also very good because let's face it, standards are similar, but not always exactly the same from one building to the next. And really, we found understanding what their expectation and their parameters are, and then training our people up to those standards, or at least getting clear on them, has also been really helpful.
I've also noticed that the rules and regulations are kind of all over the place amongst
Mm.
different owners and contractors, and is it, whoever's insurance company is backing has their own set of rules and guidelines, it seems like. So we'd like to just stay with whatever the best practices are, which, they have gotten better over the years. And I think that, it's at a point now where it really is, like you said, a no. It's not tolerated. It's just we
Right.
won't allow it. Zero accidents. There's no reason for it. There's enough equipment and technology put in place nowadays that there's really no excuse for it.
Agreed. So, Bill, you have a vast amount of experience. Like, you've been the owner of your own company. Like, what advice would you give someone who is coming up in this industry, any industry really? And, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, not to be so, don't be so hard-headed. You gotta you gotta be willing to take a lesson and learn. And I think being willing to have open ears and ask a lot of questions is the best way to gain professional growth. At least for me, it's always been the best way to learn is to get my hands on and see it for myself. And I did kind of come from the opposite of how most people I think would come into the business. I did start out on my own instead of, just working for somebody for a period of time, and then maybe making that transition into working for yourself. I did start out pretty much out of high school as like a third tier subcontractor, just welding. Me and my
Mhm.
pickup truck and my welder on the road, just trying to find work. And that did slowly develop over time, and started to get some employees. And through that process, kept contracts coming in. And I didn't have a lot of lessons learned, a lot of hard lessons. It's, probably a lot of things that I could have avoided if I had just, stuck it out a job with somebody and learned it through their mistakes instead of my own endeavors. But it did put me in the position I'm in. I do understand and know I have been through a lot. I've seen a lot. I would be able to get through most of it, not any situation that you put in front of us.
It's impressive what you've done, what you've accomplished, and I have to say, Bill, Lawton is a real class organization. You guys do great work. You have great culture, and I'm really thankful that you came on the show. One thing I want to ask you is how could people get in touch with you, whether it's another subcontractor or anyone listening in the audience? How do you prefer to be contacted? What's easy?
You can always be contacted through our website, lawtonwelding.com, or we have 3 facility locations. We actually have a main office in Topsfield. We have our main facility, which is in Georgetown, and another fabrication plant in Plainville, Massachusetts. So we're pretty well spread out along the eastern seaboard. We ship out all the way down to Florida, or we actually just worked on a school out in Chicago, LA. So we'll go national if it works out.
Good for you.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
absolutely.
And the growth of your company has been impressive to see as well. So, and personally, would you be reachable on LinkedIn if people wanted to hear more about either your journey or the advice and what you've taught us today on the show?
Yeah, they could reach out to me through LinkedIn, or they can reach out to the company, the main office. They can call here where I am in Plainville. Everybody else pretty much works up in Topsfield, Georgetown, out of the New Hampshire area. They call me the Southern Boy. So, anything that comes up in Rhode Island, the Cape, south of Boston, they throw it my way. So, but yeah, they can call any of our offices and get in touch with me, or send me an email, LinkedIn.
Well, we're grateful that the Southern Boy invested so much time with us today.
Thanks for having me
Seriously.
on.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, Bill. And thanks for everyone who listened today. If you learned something, if you laughed, tell someone about the show. Bill, thanks again. And it's been another exciting episode of Facility Rockstars. We will see everybody next time. It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Colutus, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.